Hey, we're live.
Hey, we are live.
We're 10 minutes late because my internet sucks.
Yeah, it looks better now.
Well, we'll see how it goes. I'll have to work on that. So
Yeah.
maybe next week.
All right.
Okay.
This
How you
is
doing
this
today?
is this should be the podcast, episode 3, topic 3, putting off cancellation one more week.
Yep. There we go.
Hello.
Hello.
It just occurred to me the apropos nature of that song, because that song's about people who never really look to the left or the right, and they're just kind of going. And
Wow.
then, so it's kind of, I supposedly appropriate for the borderline controversial things that we say.
That's nice. That's good to know. One of these days, I'll listen to that song in its entirety, Dan, with the lyric sheet in my bedroom at the stars, reading and thinking of you fondly.
If you have Spotify, it's available on all streaming platforms.
Yeah, but where do I get the inner sleeve on the cassette tape? That
I didn't
folds
make
out?
any of those.
Well, I mean, that really.
Well, nobody buys
that
physical.
loses the magic.
Well, true. I mean, I did that on the last few, but then, of course, as everybody knows who's done this, you end up with just boxes and boxes of unused CDs that are sitting underneath my table over here.
This is true.
So this time I was like, you know what? Even though I enjoy the craft of it, like doing all the Photoshop and doing everything, this time I was like, you know what? I'm just going to skip the whole physical CD part since nobody buys those anyway.
Yeah. Well,
But
that's fair.
it does lose a little bit of chutzpah because it doesn't quite feel as tangible. But
Yeah, but you got the novelty ones you can hand out and give to family members who aren't able to stream.
yeah, I guess that's true. When we do Shayla's album, I think she's going to get like a bunch of vinyl made up.
Cool.
And then like give them, like sell them for like $50, like some sort of, basically they become sort of wall pieces, or for the cool people who have vinyl. But yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, shall we hop right into this thing?
Yeah.
All right. Amply titled Dr. Fauci and the Branch Covidians.
We got to give Jeremy credit for that joke because he came up with that like last year.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. But also, we know what happened with the Branch Davidians, so let's keep it light. Actually, that was recently, wasn't it? The anniversary of that, just a couple weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you ever see that movie they made about it? It was like a miniseries. Well, I guess it was like 1,000 miniseries, but there was the one called Waco. It's on Netflix.
Yeah, the Netflix one. Yes.
Yeah, it's got like Michael Shannon and the chick from Supergirl. It's really good.
Yeah, it was very good. I watched it and was angry. So
Yeah,
it was,
I mean, I think that was the point.
I was
It was
watching
very
it with my wife. She's like, "Wow, is that really what happened?" I was like, "Yeah, I mean, pretty much."
Pretty
I mean,
much.
Yeah, I mean, like historically, that is exactly what happened. Now, all the drama in the documentary, or the whatever, that's its own thing. But either way, that was cool. It was fun.
All right.
In a
So
really
anyway,
terrible way.
back to the topic at hand. So
Yes.
what we started talking about this the other day, and then somebody said the red flag phrase, which was, no, wait, this should be the podcast. So,
Yeah, sure.
all right. So what was it you were saying? You go first.
Okay, well, I mean, it came up a lot in my feeds because of different people I follow and different podcasts I listen to. The Joe Rogan thing where he had the comic Dave Smith on, and a small little segment of it was just talking about the vaccines and how Joe Rogan was saying, if you're generally a healthy young person, you take care of yourself, you don't have any comorbidities, or you're just generally a healthy person. You might not want to take the vaccine, or he wouldn't do it if it was him. And that caused a huge controversy. And it ended up being on all the nightly newses. All sorts of people are making fun of Joe Rogan. Dr. Fauci addressed it.
He was promoting an anti-vax narrative.
Yes, he's an anti-vaxxer now.
Apparently, yeah.
Even though he said several times during the whole show, or during that whole segment, that 5-minute segment, he's like, well, if you should get vaccinated if you feel like you need to, or if you are at risk. And he's like, I tried to get vaccinated. I haven't done it yet. My parents are vaccinated. It's a very good thing. He's like, I don't think I would vaccinate my kids, is what he did say that, though, which I don't know how old his kids are, but obviously they're not 21, but they're younger than that.
Yeah, they're all under 20, I think.
Right. So then that just went into this general hysteria about
Well, yeah.
a lot of news stories, a lot of late night people making fun of him and saying he's dangerous. Like this is a dangerous point of view that if you say something publicly about not taking the vaccine, you are now an anti-vaxxer, like in the main, and then
Yeah.
you are.
I mean, what he
you're
said was
putting people in danger.
Yeah, what he said was basically the equivalent of if you're in a car but it's not moving, you probably don't need to wear your seatbelt. And then somebody was like, "Oh, he's promoting an anti-seatbelt narrative."
Right.
That's
true.
It's like, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they've been trying to get Rogan for a long time. So, I mean, there's the whole conspiracy theory amongst his devotees that like he's kind of softened his stance on a lot of stuff ever since he made the Spotify move. Right. Which, I mean, ever since he left YouTube, I haven't really listened to him that much because I'm too cheap to pay for Spotify. But all the people saying like he wouldn't have had to apologize if this was the old Rogan because I don't know if that's true or not. It could just be angry young men.
Two things. I don't pay for YouTube because I'm too cheap to pay for YouTube. I pay for Spotify, and I still don't listen to it that much because I never think about Spotify as podcast. It's its own little heading. I know it's there, but it takes me forever to remember it's even on there.
Yeah.
But sidebar. But yeah, but then even then people are like, well, he even walked it back, or like the devotees. Okay, so I like Joe Rogan. I'm not a Joe Rogan fanboy or nothing. I can't listen to every podcast because I have a life. But like they're saying, he walked it back and he apologized. And I don't really think he apologized. He just kind of said, well, look, man, I'm a comedian. I'm a dirty comic and a MMA fighter, like commentator. So if you're really listening to me, A, that's your first problem. And B, he's like, I didn't say you shouldn't get vaccinated. He's like, now, if your question is like, it's down the road, like, so it's like, if you don't get vaccinated, now you're harming others possibly who don't get vaccinated. That's an entirely different question.
But that's what we have medical professionals for. And
right.
Yeah. Well, he has that advantage. It's one of those things where like he has some of the smartest people on the planet on his show. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And he talks about high level topics that, most sort of news anchors would be like, whoosh, they wouldn't even be remotely qualified. Like how many people could sit there and, the amount of people that nobody has interviewed the people he's interviewed. I mean, maybe like Charlie Rose or Larry King. I mean, that's the level that you're talking about. He's got like, he had like Elon Musk on there and he's had, all the smartest people in the world come on there. So the guy can hang, but then he also has the advantage that if something goes south and somebody says, well, hold on, that was a problematic comic, he'd be like, well, hey, I just tell jokes for a living, man. It's cool. Yeah. So
that's true.
I mean, that's a smart strategy, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, yes, that's true. I mean, and he does have a huge platform, and that's completely unrealistic to say what he says doesn't have influence because he's got what hundreds of millions of freaking
more people listen to him than they do to I don't know, pick your CNN anchors, but yeah.
Oh yeah, by a long shot.
Well, and what makes it kind of goofy, it would be one thing if it was like, if it was some sort of like fringe comment, you know what I mean, where he said something about like, oh, use the 5G, man, it's gonna, but he wasn't,
right.
And the problem is, it's like the people, they've decided that it goes against the established narrative.
Yes.
Okay, well, I mean, I might be sympathetic to that if there was even an established narrative. Right now, the established narrative is woefully like contradictory with itself. Mm-hmm. So I mean, what was it? There's people making compilations of Fauci making comments where he says like, "Wear a mask," and then he says, "Well, you don't need to wear a mask," and then it's like, we'll be, and it's just like the amount of, and I'm not blaming the man for it because science is hard. Everybody, I believe, I in good faith believe that people are doing the best they can. Mm-hmm. But to act like there's been a consistent through line of like this is the smart perspective all the way through that's ridiculous. I mean, everybody's just throwing stuff out there, Mm-hmm. But so I mean, there isn't even an established narrative. Masks are good, masks are bad, masks do a lot, masks do nothing. I mean, it's we talk a big game. I mean, I wear a mask when I go places just because, why not? I live in Durham, so it's like it's mask territory. But when I go down to South Carolina, I notice very little mask wearing.
Yeah, the beach, not so much. It's a little more Jimmy
Buffett-ish.
Yeah,
I mean, I spent the last 2 weekends in Charleston and Myrtle Beach, respectively, and there was not a lot of masking there. But
yeah,
I had but here's my potentially hypocritical comment. I mean, I had the first vaccine 2 weeks ago, and I'm getting my second one on Friday. So to me, it's like it's a low barrier. I mean, the first one made me a little bit sick. The second, hopefully, I don't know if the second one's gonna make me sick or not, but that's a small price to pay for like, just in case they're right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And also it's like a liability thing, for me being for work and stuff. I'm going to people's offices. I like being able to say without lying, oh yeah, we're all fully vaccinated. So, but then you got the people who are like, well, even if you're fully vaccinated, you probably, you can still transmit it. It's like, well, then what's the point of the damn vaccine?
Right. Well, yeah. And then that's the next, oh yeah. So I'm with you on that. And then that's the next logical step. Right. So then the question is, it's irresponsible for a person of Joe Rogan's stature to say, well, you don't need to get vaccinated if you're healthy and you're not worried about it. If you don't want to get sick, you might want to get vaccinated. And what's the problem if you're vaccinated and then everyone else who's not can take that risk? If that's your risk tolerance, you take it. That's on you at this point of the game, because we know so much. We have the data and we have vaccines available. And then I guess the next pushback then is, well, then you're not going to get to herd immunity. And then there can be variants and there can be different strains of this thing that come out of people not having the vaccine. And then that can be a hazard to those who have already been vaccinated. But again, that just kind of begs the question. So I've heard that and I went, oh, okay, that's a pretty decent pushback, I guess. So maybe if you don't get the vaccine and you're healthy and you could get it and it's not going to kill you, just get it for herd immunity's sake. But then kind of just digging into, again, ancillary research here. I'm not a doctor by any stretch of the imagination. The vaccines currently out there handle the variants fine, like pretty well. So if the vaccines work, they work. If they don't, they don't. It's like the measles vaccine works. It just does. Okay. So if you have the measles vaccine, you're fine. It doesn't matter if like you don't and I do. That's not how it works. So it's kind of a which is it kind of thing. Where are we?
Well, right. There's but
that's every step along the way for the last 12, 14 months. Where exactly are we? Everything goes back and forth.
It's been that way for the last 5 years. Take Trump, for example. Not that it's like he's either, an
Don't
imbecile.
You say anything about my president, Dan. Not my president.
He's either an imbecile or he's a diabolical genius.
40
can't he be both? You know what I mean? It's like because people will say that he's the next Hitler or he's trying to enact some sort of fascist agenda or whatever. And it's like, okay, but you just said he was an idiot 5 minutes ago talking about a different topic. So would an idiot be able to enact a fascist agenda?
Right.
Pick one. You know what I mean? Which is my position was always like, well, he's a megalomaniacal narcissist who sometimes says things that I begrudgingly agree with and many times says things I don't. Mm-hmm. That's like life, right? But if you're invested in the idea of, well, I got to have something to be mad about and I need something that I can shame half the population over, at that point that trumps, no pun intended, like the idea of like semantic logic. So you're talking about the same thing here. It's like, well, and I'm not saying everybody, but like a lot of people, you can tell they got used to the idea of, thinking they were better than, the run of the mill Joe six packs of the world. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to say, well, that vaccine isn't going to do everything for you. Okay. So you still need to wear a mask and do all this kind of stuff, trying to make that person feel dumb. And then when the person counters back, was like, oh, actually I have been fully vaccinated, because, science is pretty amazing. We got this cool vaccine. That's awesome. It's a great victory. And they go, oh, well, or I'm sorry, I had it backwards. But then if they say, well, that vaccine sounds like it's pretty shitty. I'm not taking. What's the point of taking the vaccine if I still have to wear a mask? Right. And they go, oh, okay, so you're anti-science. You don't want to take the vaccine. It's like, which one of those does it work or not?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, because that was the big lead up. So it was okay. So we have to do all these lockdowns. We have to do all the social distancing. We have to do all the masks. We have to shut businesses down. You have to not see people, see your family. But don't worry, help's coming. It's around the corner. It's the vaccine. Yeah. And then it started trickling out that your vaccine's gonna be great. It's gonna be awesome. Also, you still have to social distance. You still have to wear your mask. You still really can't be around people. You still have to be very, very careful. You don't have to wash your grocery bags anymore because people still do that, but you've never really had to do that. Yeah. So it's like one of those things. It's just
Meanwhile,
go ahead.
Meanwhile, we've normalized the idea that the government can say, "Oh, you can't operate your business."
Oh yeah.
And so like now we've gotten everybody one notch more comfortable with that idea. So the next virus may be less dangerous, or it may not even be a virus. We've got the
climate change.
Yeah, that's the conspiracy theory angle, but it's not entirely without merit.
No, maybe not. Maybe it is. I don't know. But no, it's like
I don't know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Just discussion with the shutdown stuff, like all the angry memories that come up on Facebook. Were like, hey, Dave, you have a memory to look back on. I was like, oh, that was me yelling at the clouds last fall when everything was getting shut down. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to remember that. That wasn't fun.
Yeah. I think we all learned a lot about ourselves back then, way back a year ago, because it was, yeah, everybody responds to crises in different ways, I guess, but I don't know.
Right on. Hey, so if anyone is watching this on YouTube, they should comment. You can comment if you're watching this, and we can interact with you. Did you know that, Dan?
Presumably, yes, I'm tangentially aware of that.
And
Can you
eventually,
can you see the comments from your Facebook thing?
no, the Facebook one doesn't work. I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
We'll have to get with our subpar producer team to explain us what's going on with that. And also,
Our crack production squad.
we should have our YouTube channel up and rolling for next week, so we can start uploading stuff
Yeah.
to that and discussing live with our fans there, as opposed to your fans who are also a comedian's fans named Dan Cummins.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. It would be interesting to see if that's hurt me or helped me in the long run. I definitely remember like 8 years ago seeing some reviews on iTunes back when people still reviewed albums on iTunes. People being like, "What the hell is this? I was looking for a stand-up comic, and then like 1 star." And I remember getting really angry about that. And then there was this one guy who was like, "Oh, this album's awesome. I was looking for the comedian." And then I did a video like 4 years ago on my last album where somebody was like, "That's so cool that he does stand up and he also writes songs. That's great." And I commented on there. I was like, "Actually, we're 2 different people, so it's a common thing. But glad you enjoyed the song." He's like, "That's so great." He responded back. It's so great. I'm gonna come to your next stand up show. I'm like, "Thanks for your support." I was like, whatever. But
So, sorry, short tangent. I remember a long time ago, we found that there was a DaveDuran.com out there, and it was a motivational speaker. So me and Jeremy,
yes, you bought
were you
the
there?
book.
Yeah,
I remember we talked about it. Didn't you buy the guy's book?
He sent me the book because I sent him a long fake email, like cease and desist of using my name and ruining my reputation.
That's hilarious.
And it was like a 800-word email, and the guy just wrote back. He's like, "That's freaking hilarious." He's like, "Would you like one of my books?" I was like, "Yeah, man, send it over." So, yep, I got the Dave Duran book.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I told you this story. I don't know if you remember this. It was like back in 2000, 2001, somewhere around there, where it was like we went to the movies like in Jacksonville or something, and then we got home at like 3 a.m. or whatever. And so it was like a summer after college or whatever. I was staying with my parents. And then my mom woke me up at like 10:45 the next morning because I was exhausted. She's like, "Hey, is Dave okay?" I'm like, "I don't know. I saw him like 8 hours ago." And she was like, "Well, I forget who's one of our people that we knew from town. Like, well, Judy just called and heard that Dave Duran was killed on the news or something like that." I'm like,
I think I remember this.
probably not. And then the first question was, well, do we need to like make food for the family? Like that was the immediate concern because it's the South. You got to make food. And then I was like, and then we found out it was somebody else. But I think I called you, I don't know, or something. And I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And you're like, "Hey, oh, okay, you're alive. Never mind." But yeah.
I vaguely remember that. I do.
The idea that there was somebody with a name similar enough to yours that lived in Carteret County was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's fair. It was that Davy Durand I keep hearing so much about from a one. I'm not going to say his name.
Yeah.
I don't want to dox anybody on our very popular show.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, man. So I thought that was a funny that whole story, that whole weekly thing. And it's also super silly that Joe Rogan can be a controversial figure for like not controversial reasons.
Well, he's alt-right adjacent.
Oh, I guess so. But like,
No, I mean he's not really, but that's what they say.
I know what you're saying. But like, what I'm saying is like, he's like a dirty comedian, and like he says ridiculously offensive things on the regular, and just like when he has like
I don't even think he says offensive things, but I mean maybe I have really thick skin.
No, well, okay. So theoretically, I meant like more in his act and stuff like that. Not so much on the show because the show it's a wide ranging spectrum of what he does.
His comedy isn't even that dark.
It used to be pretty.
I mean, it's
racy.
not. In the grand scheme of comics, he's not singling out groups. Well, I don't know. His recent stuff, he pretty much just makes fun of people who are triggered by things.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Anyway.
Either way. I don't know. I mean, do you have any other thoughts on that in general? We can move on to a longer fun topic if you'd like. Because I know you'd have more to say on the.
No,
on the
I had
topic.
something profound, but it escaped me. I got distracted.
Yeah. Just let me ask you though. I mean, do people ask you at work if you've been vaccinated and stuff? Does that come up?
Not so much in like a school marm kind of way. I mean, it comes up in conversation, and I usually kind of pepper it into conversation because I mean, it's the kind of topics that people are talking about, right?
Yeah.
So, like most people are super cool. Like most of the clients that I go see, like there's this one country club, and they're like, well, we like being able to tell our members that like all of our staff are totally vaccinated.
Sure.
Now, I was like, oh, well, that's cool. I bet that makes a lot of people feel better. Now, everybody still has to wear masks at all time. So, because I guess the optics and everything, or like, whatever sort of percentage of chance it is, the last thing a corporation needs is for some sort of liability to come. So I get that. I don't fault anybody for those kind of things. And then there's other places that I go to where nobody wears masks at all. So I'm the person who's like wearing a mask, just because I'm a third party and, I don't need it coming back to,
No, I get it.
my superiors to like, well, Dan was over here and he wasn't wearing, because like my luck, there would be one person who came in that was like sort of for whatever reason immunocompromised, and then I would feel very bad. So
yeah, for sure.
yeah,
I get. I mean, no, I do. I mean, I do sales calls all day. I go to people's houses all across the county, and I don't think anyone's ever asked me. And I would say 5% of people ask me to put a mask on before I come into the house. Like it's very low.
Huh. Interesting.
Very, very low. Yeah.
That's not what I would expect in Durham County.
Yeah. Well, also I can deduct where the people are from because I can see their home address and then their local address, and it's almost all like triangle people. That's can you please put a mask? Could you? Like, yeah, I can put a mask on. Not a problem. I mean, and like if I see somebody with a mask on, I just go, "Hey, I got a mask. I'll put it on for you." And like it's 50-50 probably. They're like, "No, it's okay," or "Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, I appreciate it."
Yeah,
So
it's an interesting question to see how long it'll take before the assumption of vaccination occurs. Like right now, right now in the triangle, if you see somebody not wearing a mask in public, well, if it's, I think generally it's considered if somebody's outside, nobody cares. With the exception that like unless you go to like right around like Duke or UNC. Like if you go into like 9th Street or whatever, or like Franklin Street in Chapel Hill, you'll see people just walking by themselves with no soul in 300 yards wearing a mask, And so like, I'm like, all right, well, you got a master's degree. What does that say for our educational system? But like, but like most people don't have a problem with it. But like if they see somebody there, the assumption is, well, that guy's a jerk, right? For not wearing a mask, or like, oh, they're one of those people that doesn't believe in the virus. At what point will that shift to like, because now it's starting to be like, well, that person could be vaccinated. Maybe that's why they're not wearing a mask. So like,
true.
Where will that tipping point happen to where, you know what I mean? I don't know. Some people just like bossing other people around, but
yeah, that's true. And then other people do like lording over their self-righteous,
yeah,
Lord,
like
the
vaccination card is like the new I voted sticker.
Well, good Lord. I mean, sorry, man. I do those, the little, just the icon, your Facebook picture where it's just like anytime something happens, there's like, I'm vaccinated. It drives me crazy. The virtual signal with that just drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Or like, and it's not just that, like it's any of the popular, this is now your screenshot picture that 8 billion people adopt. It just drives me crazy.
They'll add the little frame to your thing.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is. Like there's like a tragedy and it'll be like, I stand with Timbuktu. I'm like, no, you don't. You got nothing to do with it. Like, you don't even know what happened in Timbuktu. I don't know.
Look at us being edgy rebels.
Ooh, yeah. I don't know.
I'm sticking it to the man by not changing my profile picture.
I don't stand with Timbuktu. They deserved it.
In fact, I hate Timbuktu, and I hope it falls into the ocean.
Yes, it deserves to die, and I hope it burns in hell.
Where is Timbuktu? Is it like Nepal or something?
You got me, man. I have no freaking clue. Timbuktu, to me, is just like a cartoon reference town. It's there. I don't know where.
I
it's
get
at, though.
Timbuktu confused with Kathmandu, which is also a real place. This is one of those. I was today years old. I always assumed that Kathmandu was a made up place from that Bob Seger song, until it's in Doctor Strange, when Doctor Strange goes to Asia to like clear his head and sort of learn the magical sorcerer's ways. He goes to Kathmandu. I'm like, stop, hold up, that's real.
So maybe we can segue the Bob Seger comment into
Okay.
our musical comment. But let me end by this on this story. So this weekend, I was driving into church, right, for like music practice early, and I saw this old dude walking down the street, like off of like Bridges Street in Moorhead.
Yeah.
It's like really early, just like really disheveled looking, probably going to get a coffee. And then later, I'm sitting in there in the middle of the services, sitting like drinking a water, talking to my mom actually. And this guy comes up, interrupts me. Like me and my mom are talking, like taps me. He goes, "Hey man, I just really want to tell you, you look exactly like Bob Seger." I was like, "Okay, thanks, man." Bob Seger. I haven't gotten that ever, but I could be worse. You know, I'll take that. I think 70s Bob Seger. I'm assuming you're going with.
No,
So
maybe
I'm
he
cool
means
with
Bob
that.
Seger now.
I hope not. I mean, I don't know how to put pictures on the screen here, but I'm pretty sure Bob Seger now is not a sight to behold.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
I had a friend a few years ago. Well, I mean, I'm still friends with them, but I don't see them very often. It was a couple, and I just assumed the guy and I, we would talk a lot, and it was like using normal conversation. But his wife was like never really very talkative. I just assumed that she was kind of like just not super talkative. And then I found out like months later that I looked like a guy that I believe it was her sister or some relative was married to at one point, and the guy was like a real piece of work. He was like a horrible person, and so I think I remember. I don't want to put words in her mouth. She told me, and she was like, I mean, I just every time I looked at you, I saw that guy, and it really made me angry. So I didn't want to talk to you. And it was like the strangest thing. I was like, oh, okay, apparently I looked like this guy who's a real jerk, but I don't know. That was weird.
I don't know, man.
And then I was at a show one time, and this older couple told me, "There's like, oh, you look just like our son-in-law." I'm like, oh, okay. That sounds like a pretty good looking dude. And then I made some sort of clever, I don't know, some kind of comment. And then they pulled out their phone and like, here, Kate, take a look. And the guy didn't look anything like me. He was like a white dude, like at least 40. And I was, 30 something at the time. Like had at least 30, 40 pounds on me, like losing his hair. Like, I'm like, huh. So I didn't know whether to be offended or flattered because apparently they really loved the dude. I didn't think he looked like me at all, but.
All right. Well, I think you are more handsomer Dan than that Dan. So let's go with it. All right, Dan. Awkward segues aside. Let's go here. Where do you land on the Van Halen question? Is it Diamond Dave or is it Tequila Sammy? That's what I want to know.
I mean, if I had to choose one, I would choose Sam. But it's a fence sitting thing.
That's where I am too. But also, I don't have a very strong opinion on this. But I got reasons. I think I got reasons, and I like both pretty strongly. So
well, I mean, individually, they're both two of the best rock bands of the rock era, right?
Yeah.
It just so happens that they share 75% of the same people, right? But they are. I mean, it's easier to think of it as fundamentally two different bands. So. But it depends on your litmus test for what you think is quality, right? I mean, a lot of these diehard Dave fans, it's not actually, I think it's one of those things where if it catches you in your period of life, right?
Sure.
So like if you were 16 when Van Halen 1 came out, and you were like a budding guitar player and you heard Eruption and it totally changed your world, right? That's going to be so formative to you that, 6 or so years later when Dave leaves the band and they bring in, oh, the guy, the Drive 55?
Drive 55?
Oh, that's this. They're keyboards. What is this crap? Like I can understand that would be, because by that time you've moved to a different stage of life and everybody's getting jobs and careers. Our youth is over, man.
Well, fair enough. Well, see, then I think we have the added advantage because we both came of age well past that musically.
Right. I discovered both at the same time.
Right. Well, I was like a classic rock kid driving in the car and they would both be on the station. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
I didn't even realize. I was tangentially familiar with songs from both eras, not realizing they were the same band.
Sure,
but that's because in high school I was obsessed with like blues, so I didn't really, anything like anything that was like remotely 80s sounding, I didn't really like until at some point a switch flipped and I was like, holy crap, I love this.
Right.
So, yeah.
If it wasn't Stevie Ray Vaughan, you didn't want anything to do with it.
I mean, I was in that period for a while, and then I gradually
it's not
expanded.
A bad period to be in. I'm just saying, it's not a bad.
It was a little isolating. I have
this
habit of always liking things that everyone else hates. So it's like when I was in high school and you guys were all playing like all the 90s stuff. I was like, oh, I don't know how to. I'm going to go obsess over this genre that nobody else I know likes. And then when I got to college, and John Mayer got really big, if I was smart, I would have been like, oh, I can already play like John Mayer. So that's going to be a great in. I decided, oh, you know what? I'm not really into that now. I want to listen to Iron Maiden and hair metal, which, why did I do that? It was like, I just like my subconscious was looking for ways to have zero friends. And then, anyway, but so who knows?
Still worked out. But no, it's funny though that you mentioned, like it's like you see it as like two different bands, and that's a probably not a super unique point of view, but like it's true though. But it's also really phenomenal. And I was telling somebody this who actually said that they're like, I just see them as two different bands. I was like, but yeah, it is pretty phenomenal that like they had the 1984 album, and then after that it was 5150, which are two like pretty front to back amazing albums all the way through.
I would argue that 5150 has more. Well, I'll say that. This is the thing about all Van Halen periods have their share of clunkers.
Sure.
Like if you only know the hits, you'd be like, wow, these are two great bands. But then if you actually, like, as I used to, just listen to all of the albums all the way through, there's deep cuts and B-sides on all of those albums that you're going, okay.
Absolutely.
Well, that doesn't really have a radio-ready chorus on it. I mean, it might have great riffs and stuff like that. I mean, like, real fans know, like, all the tracks on all the albums. Mm-hmm. So they had their share of clunkers on, all of the albums. Well, except for, like, the first album. The first album is, like, all hits.
Yeah. That's true.
But, like, 5150 has some clunkers. Carnal Knowledge has clunkers. I mean, Balance does, So it's like...
Well, 5150 is pretty short. There's probably only one or two clunkers, and then the other ones are pretty
the last
radio
track.
songs.
The last track is kind of a throwaway.
Yeah.
So
that song's stupid. And actually, that's funny too, because like I in preparation for this, I actually went through like the whole discography, and I've never listened to like all the deep cuts of Van Halen, early to new. And honestly, I stopped around like 1993. I was like, all right, I've had enough of this.
Well,
like,
Balance is a criminally underrated album. That's the one that has like Seventh Seal and Can't Stop Loving You, and they went for this weird. There was this darkness in the thing. It was like chung 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 chung, like that kind of stuff. And then it was kind of the same period where they did that song for Twister, even though that was a couple years later.
Was it the Twister soundtrack era? Because that song's amazing.
No, the Twister. That was the song that broke up the band, even though that was arguably the last great song that Van Halen ever did. But it was kind of the same thing where they were. I mean, Eddie was always experimenting, so everybody else was kind of along for the ride to see, like, well, what was he coming up with? What can we do with that? So the Diamond Dave era was doomed. It was never going to last because based on, 1984, he was doing all his keyboard stuff, and then there was, the producer and them, they were all fighting. Basically, Ted Templeman he thought the keyboard stuff was stupid, and then Eddie plays Jump for him, and he's like, oh, okay, so that's a hit. Let's do that. He didn't really care about the other songs. Nobody wanted to do that song except for Eddie and Alex. They had to get the Michael McDonald, the Doobie Brothers guy, in as like a co-writer, an uncredited co-write to figure out how to write the lyrics to that one.
Nice.
So it's like, but that train had already started. So even if Dave hadn't kind of decided, oh, I'm done with this, man, I'm going to be a movie star, like, the direction they were going probably wouldn't have been compatible with him anyway.
How do you feel about? All right, so who's got the better solo career, David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar?
That is a tough question. Sammy has better songs.
Yeah, but I'm more endeared to the David Lee Roth.
Dave had the best band. I mean,
they like wasn't Steve Vai in that band?
He had Steve Vai. What's the bass player? Billy Sheehan on bass, and drummer whose name escapes me. So he to be able to go from like the top rock band and then be able to do a solo band with those guys is a pretty impressive pedigree. Yeah. So it was unique sound. So the musicianship on your average David Lee Roth album is superior to the musicianship on the average Sam album, except for the fact that Sam overall writes better songs.
Well,
I don't
plus you
know.
have the added benefit of David Lee Roth still covering like Just a Gigolo and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
which is funny. It's funny. It's good.
No, yeah.
But
It's was it the id and the superego? It's like two different parts
yeah,
of the brain or something.
right. I think I like David Lee Roth's more solo stuff better than Sammy Hagar stuff. Only
Honestly,
because
David Lee Roth is the kind of person I would much rather listen to him talk than sing.
that's fair.
Because if you listen to him in interviews, he's fascinating. He's like somebody
Yeah.
turned on a radio station. He's like, I was in Tokyo and I was learning Aikido from this guy, and my dad he had a '49 Chevrolet. That car had the best radio, and what we would do is we would get on Suns. And he just tells these stories that just go all over the place, and it's great. Whereas Sam is just kind of like, all right, well, that's a guy I'll have a beer with.
Right.
He's not as deep as Dave, but Dave is just off in his own world. But I don't know.
Yeah.
But here's the
funny.
thing. But as far as comparing the two eras, it's hard to say. I mean,
Well, they're different eras for sure. Like Sammy
if you
Hagar.
had, okay, here's this thing. If you hadn't had the first era, say like Van Halen came on the scene with 5150, it wouldn't have changed the world like Van Halen 1 did.
Right.
Because his sound had kind of, well, I don't know, it's hard to say because the musical landscape of the 80s was informed by the existence of Van Halen from the 70s. Right. So it's hard
Fair
to
enough.
deny the groundbreaking quality. I mean, nobody other than like Jimi Hendrix changed how guitars are played
Oh yeah,
more
for sure.
than Eddie did. So, and it was sort of the happy act. I mean, like nobody had ever heard a guitar sound like, I mean, I know people who it's like their whole guitar playing existence is based around, well, how can I sound like Eddie? How can I get that sound? And people they go into these deep dives. I mean, I've been on the forums and it's fun, but like, how can I invite people to like and comment? Yeah, people feel free to like and comment. But
I didn't know what that button did. I thought it would do it. Learning on the fly here.
this
buddy.
is why we need a producer. Anyway, but so
ridiculous.
I think here's a common misnomer. The misnomer that the Sammy era was more pop is, I think, not true. Because I think Eddie was just as innovative in guitar-wise. It was just that by that time, everybody else had started doing what he was doing, so it didn't sound as innovative.
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah. If you listen to, like, the Live Without a Net concert, which to me is, like, that arguably might be the best live rock concert ever recorded. Because you're talking about, like, you got four guys who are just, like, totally in the zone. It's like an hour and a half long, but, like, every song is killer. They're doing all this kind of stuff. They clearly all like each other.
Yep.
And it's like 1987 or whatever, and it's in like New Haven or somewhere. Oh, it's amazing. Compare that to like when they did the Right Here, Right Now show, which was like from a few years later. It was a lot more like, all right, we've been on tour for a few years. It was a little bit more by the numbers. You can tell that they kind of went into the studio and re-recorded some parts and fixed some stuff. But that Live Without a Net show is amazing.
I think I've heard that. I'm pretty sure I've heard that.
It's been
not, I will go
basically
find it.
anytime, like last October when Eddie died, anytime somebody was trying to do like a retrospective of like, oh, like they would show clips from that show. I mean, it was kind of like that. But I guess, so here's the other litmus test is like, well, what do people look for in a song? Dave had this sort of esoteric randomness to his lyrics where he didn't particularly care if Joe Schmo listening to the radio understood what the hell he was talking about. Like, there was the one that was like Everybody Wants Some, where like he was literally in the studio. He didn't have any lyrics, and he was talking about like the engineer's girlfriend, who was like in the, he's like, I like the way you wear the high heels, and everybody's like, oh man, this guy's so cool. He's just literally listing things in the room. I mean, that was his whole vibe. He's just considers himself kind of like just holding court at all times, and if that's the vibe that you want in music, then it's great. But whereas Sam is the kind of guy who's like, I'm gonna write a song about love, and so if that's Go ahead.
I was really hoping that Everybody Wants Some was literally written for a little hamburger that comes alive in a movie and dances and
I
sings.
forgot about that.
I thought it was a Better Off Dead thing, but it's not, alas. That's a great scene.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Hey, listen, you want to do something we haven't done before?
Sure.
There's some comments on a Facebook stream, which is not coming up on our stream, but we can discuss some comments.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so one person early on before the show started, because we started late, said, talk about cryptocurrency. A gentleman named Chris. And I said, hey, man, ask a question about it. And he said, what does Dave think about cryptocurrency? So that's real cool.
What do you think about? My answer to cryptocurrency is I wish I knew a lot more about it. I know some people who are making some money on it. I'm like, oh man, I should have gone into that.
I wish I had bought Bitcoin a long time ago, but no, I don't know a lot about it. I think it's great in theory. I like a competing currency that I don't really know a lot about blockchain, just to be perfectly honest with you. So but,
every time I've listened to somebody explain it, I understand it less. I work in computers for a living, so I still don't get it. I know that it affects the availability of graphics cards. Because then I go to buy a new computer for somebody, and I need something that has like a GTX 1080 or whatever. The price of like gaming graphics cards goes like based on like they get out of demand because people buy up all these graphics cards and they use them for Bitcoin mining, and I don't know. I don't understand how it works.
Yeah, I don't know that either. I don't have a fundamental.
Everybody is laughing at our ignorance.
Yeah. I mean, someone asked. That's the answer.
What's the deal with Dogecoin? Apparently that's going up now.
Is it Dog or Doge? I think it's Dogecoin. And then there's Ethereum is another one. There's a couple of them. The Dog coin or the Dogecoin one, I think is only popular because Elon Musk tweeted about it. But again, I don't know. It's like it's funny though. It's like one of those things, man, where like people are like buying GameStop, and there are people who are like, no, man, there's really good fundamentals in GameStop. Like, no, there's not. There are zero good fundamentals in brick and mortar game selling any day. But you can still put money into it and make the company profitable somehow.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that you know people who actually thought that buying GameStop stock was like a sound investment?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I was like, well, how long are you going to keep putting money into this? Like, when's the risk too great? He's like, no, I believe in GameStop. I was like,
are they one of those like hold the line people? Joe.
Yeah. That's funny.
I wonder if Joe.
Where did that
Joe, did you buy GameStop stock? That would be. I hope you got out before it went down.
Yeah, but like, I mean, with cryptocurrency though, I mean, I think it is. Fiat currencies are terrible. Like the U.S. dollar just loses value over and over and over again, and that's
especially now that the government's about to spend $7 trillion.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about cryptos, or at least Bitcoin. There's a certain amount of Bitcoin that can be mined. Again, I don't even know what that means.
I don't know what that means either.
There's a certain amount of Bitcoin out there, and once it's there, that's it. So like it's almost like gold. The volume of gold is relatively stable throughout all of history. Lose it, gain some, get some, God, melt it, whatever. So like the hold on currency for gold, inflation dollars is pretty stable for the last couple thousand years. So, but that's the thing. Like you can't just have more gold and devalue the gold, and then it causes prices rising isn't a normal thing. I know everybody thinks that. Like back in my day, I could buy 3 suits and a horse for $7. You're like, well, it should still be $7. There's no reason for like prices don't just rise out of like nowhere. It's because people devalue the currency. You print more money, and then there's more dollars floating and trading goods that whatever. But you can't do that with cryptocurrency. So that's a good thing. And anything that stands up against the U.S. dollar and the petrodollar is probably a good thing as well.
So here's a question: if we moved away from an artificial, non-gold based currency like the dollar, say governments adopted cryptocurrency as their thing, would we still be opposed to massive government spending? I mean, I think yes, right? Because in that case, it might actually even be worse because you're spending money that doesn't exist yet, right? Like, the whole objection right now is that like we got this massive deficit that keeps going up every year. Republican, Democrat, they all just keep inflating the deficit, and then now we're getting ready to spend trillions of dollars on infrastructure, whatever the hell that means. No, and so like people like you and me are like, well, okay, let's see 5-10 years from now, the dollar's going to go. Right.
Now, everyone would be against it because they wouldn't just be able to do it. They would have to go, we need more cryptocurrency. And by the way, we're taking yours to pay for it. They're taxing you directly. Because right now it's just they just inflate the currency away, which is an indirect tax. So your money just loses value over decades. And eventually, it's still a tax.
So say you have a bunch of Bitcoin and you like cash out of your investment wallet or whatever. Does that count as income? I assume you have to pay taxes on that, right?
I don't know. I've never done anything with stocks, and
I'm pretty sure TurboTax, when I did my taxes, it asked me, "Did you make any money on Bitcoin this year?"
I'd imagine if you make money in the currency markets, it's taxable. Yeah, I'd imagine, but I'm not real sure. Hey, Wick Van Rimple, Wick Van Ripple, good name.
Who's that?
It said, I don't know. It's on your, it's on the YouTubes. They say they put a limit on how many could be made. So yeah. Oh, I know who that is. Never mind. But yes, so
what's the wait a minute? So
there
what's
is a
to
limit.
stop the world government from tracking all the bitcoins?
Oh, none. No. I mean, it's decentralized, so I don't know if there's I don't know how it's tracked. Again, you're talking to the wrong guy. I don't know. Good question. But good. I mean, but every transaction's tracked now, so it's not like you're in a different. I mean, minus cash transactions, which are a super small percentage of transactions.
Yeah. So if you wanted to, if you were like, if you're living in a shack and you wanted to truly live off the grid, you would have to transfer your Bitcoin into some sort of physical format.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like dollars or precious metals or something.
I would think
right?
so, yeah.
Like burning MP3s onto a CD.
That's funny. I like that.
Like somebody's grandpa be like, can you burn my Bitcoins onto a CD so I can put it in my safe?
I don't understand how this works. Oh yeah, that's funny, man.
All right, read more comments.
All right, yeah, we'll do a couple more, then we'll get out of here.
All right.
Let's see. Oh, yep, someone. You have to claim it on a 1099. There you go, Dan. Thank you, Joe Bordnero, for clarifying the tax consequences.
Good to know. We need to get Joe on here.
Let's see.
Joe's a knowledgeable man about many things.
He is. We'll see if he wants to come on. Jeff Blinder says, talk about Greenville, North Carolina. I used to live there. I don't anymore. That was it.
And that's all I got to say about that.
That's all I got to say. That's a whole different topic for a whole different day.
I remember my favorite Greenville. I don't have many Greenville stories. I was playing in a different band a couple years ago, and we would play at this place called the Buccaneer. I don't know if you've ever been there.
No,
it's a music venue anyway. And so it was your typical, Eastern North Carolina crowd, and college people. We played Hank Williams, and they would light up, and you play something modern, they wouldn't know it. And so there was
that's okay.
I don't know if this story will get me canceled, but but truthfully, there was one non-white dude in the whole place. And so we played our show, and I didn't think about it. So I go up to the bar afterwards to get some water. And this guy is sitting there. He's got like a million people around him. He's holding crowd. I was like, was this guy famous or something? I don't know. He wasn't tall. He didn't look like a basketball player or something. I don't know. He was just like had this charisma. And he was like, man, y'all were killing it up there. I'm like, oh, thanks, dude. I appreciate that. And he like kind of pauses for a beat. And he looks me up and down. He's like, I bet your credit score is like 730. I'm like, okay. And the funny thing was, I didn't really know what to say because like that was my credit score at the time. I was like, how did you know that? He's like, I don't know, man. I could just tell. It was the most like he didn't even say like hello. And I tried talking to him. He's like, man, I got stuff to do. And then he like kind of like just went off to the other part of the. It was weird, but anyway.
That is a little weird.
That story was probably a lot funnier in my head. Sorry.
Nah, it's okay. It's good to share. I'm trying to find more comments, but like things are being a little weird over here. So this thing doesn't want to like load all the comments. We got to figure out how to get this comment aggregator in here. There was a comment about Kathmandu in there, and I really wanted to bring it up. I lost
damn.
I lost it.
Who's Brian Baymiller?
It was from Brian Baymiller. Brian, if you can comment more about that Kathmandu thing, I can't see your comment, and I want to hear it. And I haven't talked to you for a long time. And Brian also lives in Greenville. There you go, Jeff Blinder. There's a tie-in. Okay, well, that's what we got. Well, look, man.
Cloud Coin. What is
I think
that?
I don't know. There's a bunch of cryptocurrencies, man. I do know that, but
I feel like cryptocurrency is going to be one of those things that, like, in 20 years, we're all going to be like, should have got in on that, and then, or it's going to be one of these things like, I invested my life savings in Ask Jeeves in 1999, and now I'm broke. I feel like there's
Jeeves is still around. Come on, man.
Okay, maybe that wasn't a good idea, but you know what I mean. One of those .coms that was like ridiculously inflated stocks, and then it all went like,
yeah.
So I don't know. Never underestimate the capacity of something interesting to go in the toilet, but
that's the crazy thing. Like I can't invest money in something that I don't really know anything about. We should definitely wrap this thing up though. We're getting on to we we keep talking.
Three episodes in, we've entered the non-structured sort of
we're like, let's do 30-minute
atopical
shows.
portion.
Like we were going to start with 30-minute shows, then it went to 40. Now it's at 45. Now we're pushing 50. So we're just rambling.
This is why we need to get somebody else. We need to find a topic that Jeremy will feel comfortable talking publicly about.
That would be fun. But listen, we did 2 today, and we didn't do 2 last time. We meant to do 2, and then we took some comments. This was good. We're working it out.
Yeah. And just in case Facebook is listening, everybody should get their vaccine, and everybody should wear a mask at all times.
Yes. Yeah, sure. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, there's no problem with it. I'm getting mine. So my first one made me sick. I'm hoping the second one doesn't, but I didn't plan. I didn't plan anything for this weekend, so hopefully it doesn't cause any problems.
Yeah, man.
I had a friend of mine who's in his 60s. The first one knocked him out. The second one, which was supposed to be worse, had no side effects. I don't know.